Guys, it's 94 degrees, so we're just going to cope with the audio. We're just going to cope with the audio. I shut off my fan. I cannot shut off my AC altogether. I'm sweating. I'm waiting for this to dry down. And at this point, I'm not sure if it's sweat or this still trying to dry down. I don't know, but I can't turn off my AC completely. Oh my God, I like literally can't tell if that's sweat or if it's there's stuff waiting to dry. That's disgusting. It's fine. I'm gonna put makeup on top of it and everything will be fine. I just lost 3 minutes of me filming. Guys, I'm only doing my makeup so I have something to do with my hands while I am talking. But I feel like inspired to talk about this because I'm somebody that lives it, and my For You page on TikTok has been like a cesspool of misinformation about like schizophrenia. Like, guys, here's the thing. Before we get into this, schizophrenia is a spectrum. And I just want to say with my whole fucking chest, being on any spectrum of schizophrenia is not ideal. I hate, that's the thing, like, I hate about it. Like, I'm sorry, I understand that the spectrum exists to describe severity of symptoms, but like, ideally, none of us should be on it at all. Ideally, we would all be mentally healthy and not dealing with this shit at all. But so if there's any of that, like, oh, I have blah, 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 and it's worse than a schizoid, okay. Ideally, none of us would be here. But anyways, the way that my psychiatrist describes it is like, the more letters, the more severe your symptoms are. I am a schizoaffective. I was diagnosed many, many years ago, about 15 years ago. At first, I was diagnosed as bipolar, and then when I was, like 2021, I was, not in 2021, but when I was like 21 years old, I was diagnosed as schizoaffective bipolar type. And then I ended up in a psych ward when I was 23. It was right after I had D, 23 or 24. It was right after I had D. And they knocked it back down to bipolar. And then a few years later, my psychiatrist that I have been with for close to a decade was like, I don't know why they did that, because you are very schizoaffective. Oh, and then the other thing that I wanted to say before I get into this is like, I hate when people say, I just think people who are schizophrenic, schizoaffective are they just have like a higher intuition. That's all that is. I wish that people would realize that that shit just plays into like my paranoid delusions. Like, when you say shit like that to me, what I take that as is like, when I'm being paranoid and delusional, thinking that something is happening or something that is going to happen, you're telling me that I'm right about that. You're not doing anybody any favors by being like, I think like schizophrenics are like, they're like on a higher plane than the rest of us. Like, I just think they're like communicating. Like, no. I just did the math when I was in the psych ward and they took away my diagnosis. I was 24. I remembered that because we moved from Florida in September 2013, and I was only here for like 2 weeks, and then I got thrown into the psych ward, and by the time that I got out, like all the Halloween decorations and shit were out. Like, it was still summer when I went in, and by the time that I got out, it was fall, and I was pissed. And also I kind of remember my age a little bit. This was at a time in my life when I was drinking and doing drugs very heavily. But I also remember because I was hanging out with this guy, and he was like close to 50, and he was like bragging to all of his friends that he was hanging out with a 24-year-old. He's like, yeah, I'm hanging out with a 24-year-old. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, that was around the time that I got the cancer HPV. Not a good time in my life. Didn't find out about it for a few years because I was scared. I was scared to go to the doctor. I was scared of the consequences of my own actions, so I avoided the fucking doctor like the plague, because I just knew with my whole head, heart, and ass something was wrong, and I just stuck my head in the sand and was like, if I don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist. Oh boy, did it. Oh boy. Oh boy. So the other thing that I wanted to touch on before we go is like, before we get into this is like, there are several things that they think cause schizoaffective disorder. The two main things that they do believe causes it, not hard, are genes, which tracks, and childhood trauma, which tracks. Both my brother and I have schizoaffective disorder. Yeah, I mean, both of those things track for me because it runs in my family, and also I had a piss poor childhood. But I have been, sorry, I'm like paranoid of looking at this and my eyes like going 50 different directions. I have been experiencing symptoms of schizoaffective disorder for as long as I can remember. Literally since the age of like 4. Like as far back as I can remember is the age of 4. And some of the first symptoms that I remember was being little and not wanting to be alive anymore, and thinking of ways that I could make myself not exist anymore. I remember staring at my rocking horse, laying in bed and staring at my rocking horse and thinking about how I could put a rope around my neck and jump off of it, like things like that. I also struggled like badly with intrusive thoughts, and I don't mean like the intrusive thought to stick my finger in a bowl of butter. I mean like the intrusive thought that like I thought for sure I could smell and taste flesh, rotting flesh, all the time. I would have the image of it in my head constantly, and I could not get rid of it no matter how hard I tried. I was absolutely convinced that I had smelled it, that I had tasted it, and it was like there, and I couldn't get rid of it. And I also was like insanely paranoid and delusional, and I hallucinated severely. It made my childhood hell. It really did. What I mean by that, let me elaborate a little bit, is I was very paranoid of being watched. I could not have like posters in my bedroom. I could not stand to look at pictures like of people, even people that I knew, because I was absolutely convinced that their eyes were watching me. I was convinced at one point in the 4th grade that my class was following me home from school every day and staying in the woods across from my house and watching everything that I did, and no matter what I did, I couldn't hide from them. Like I would staple down like my curtains, and I still thought that they could see me. For some reason in my head, I thought, and it wasn't just about like that, it was just about like being paranoid of being watched. I thought no matter where I run, no matter where I hide, somebody can see me. Like I thought at one point, like I could get in the floorboards of the house with a sleeping bag on, and somebody could like shove a couch or something on top of me, and somebody would still be able to see me. And I was super, super paranoid of things like cracks, vents, the areas under beds, between doors, anywhere that like there could be something there that I couldn't see. Even at, like irrationally small places, I was paranoid that there was something in there watching me, listening to me. And I would bring this up to my mother. I would tell this to my mother, and she was just like, don't talk about it. I was super, super paranoid that like people could read my thoughts all the time. Like I thought, I don't know, I literally would be sitting in a room full of people and be like, oh my God, somebody can hear my thoughts. And do this thing where if I was like typing and it like auto-corrected or auto-suggested something, and it was like an ominous word, like say I'm trying to type the word pie and it would auto-correct it to die, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. Because of my paranoia and my anxiety, I was like very, very overly cautious in my younger childhood. Like I was very, very overly cautious, but I was paranoid of things like, I remember one time my mom and I were standing in line at a pharmacy, and I was like, Mom, do you ever worry when you're standing here that somebody's gonna come up behind you and just right in the ribs? Shit like that. I think I was like 11. But if you're sitting there wondering, you're like, Shay, what about the hallucinations? Oh yes, but this is the part that I don't like to talk about, because I feel like whenever I talk about this is when people are like, oh my God, I think you're just like existing on a higher plane than the rest of us. Like I think that you're just like, maybe you're just like a psychic medium or something like that. My hallucinations have never been anything that have scared me. Because they have never been anything scary. I think I can count on one hand how many times I have hallucinated something and it has like full the fuck on terrified me. That has only happened like a handful of times. The way that I can describe it, and yes, this is something that has been happening to me since childhood. Like, this is what I always use it as an example. So if you've heard me use this before, if you think you've heard me use this before, yes, I have. sometimes our brains fill in gaps. Sometimes our brains fill in gaps. Say you're walking past your couch and there's a sweater on your couch. Your brain may perceive that sweater as the shape of like a cat because it's trying to fill in that blank of what that possibly could be. It can't really tell that that's a sweater, but it could be anything. Maybe it's a cat. Well, it's like that, but there's no sweater and there's no cat. I mostly hallucinate people and animals. And when I was younger, I mostly hallucinated like shapes. Like, I remember one time I was sitting in the parking lot of a gas station. I was probably like 18 or 19 years old. And my grandma was inside paying for something. And I just saw these shapes floating through the air. One was like a triangle, and one was a square, and one was a circle, and they looked like smoke, and they were just floating. When I was in the 8th grade, I had just moved in with my dad, and my brother went to a different school, and he got off like an hour after I did, and I would sit in the driveway and wait for him to get off the bus. And one day I was sitting in the driveway, and I was like playing with the stick. I was like scraping it on the pavement, and I looked up and I saw this bus come around the corner, and it looked old. And I swear to God, when I think back on it, but you know how like memories and shit get skewed with time, I swear to God, I only saw like the first like quarter of the bus come around the corner, because we had a very, very sharp corner, like dangerously fucking sharp corner that people would like literally turn their blinker on. It was so sharp, but they were not actually like turning. It was just the corner. Anyways, I looked up and I saw that, and I looked back down to like throw down my stick and like get up, and there was no bus. I was like, well, that's awfully quiet. There was no bus. There was no fucking bus. I hallucinated the whole fucking thing. I also had a phase like 6th grade through like 11th grade where I was like obsessed with theistic Satanism. Like most people, when they become obsessed with religion in a psychotic type of way, it's usually the other end of the spectrum. My ass went straight to asking the devil to give my friend's dad a heart attack. I think it's important to note, too, not everybody hallucinates, and not everybody hallucinates all the time. For me, personally, my hallucinations mostly happen out of the corner of my eye, and then when I see one directly in front of me, it is either like almost like a caricature of what it should be. Like if it's a person, there's something off about it. It's blurry, it's squiggly, something like that. But then I also have very vivid hallucinations. Like not that long ago, I saw a guy run in front of my house and hit the tree and disappeared. Like he got to the tree and he disappeared. And then I saw a dog in the Walmart parking lot, and I asked for help from an employee. I was standing there looking out the door at it, and she came up. She's like, what's wrong? I was like, there's a dog in the parking lot. And I have dog anxiety. Like I have severe, I love dogs, but I'm never going to approach a strange dog. I'm not like, ooh, puppy. You know, I'm not that type of person. If I don't know a dog, I automatically assume it's unfriendly. And so I was waiting for said dog's owner to show up. It was a giant fucking like Lassie looking dog. And it walked behind this like white SUV, and it never came back out. It never came back out. And the employee was just like, okay, but the super hyper like realistic ones don't happen very often. And I've talked to my psychiatrist about this. He said it's common, but there hasn't been a lot of studies done on it. But mine tend to happen more whenever I am hormonal, under a lot of stress, or like the moon is exceptionally full. I just gotta tell you guys, the saying like the weirdos come out when the moon is full, it is absolutely true. It is absolutely true. As far as auditory hallucinations go, they were much, okay, I'm heavily medicated, by the way. I'm very, very, very heavily medicated on antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, different things that have like antipsychotic features but are for depression, things of that nature. Like you could literally like, my therapist calls it an arm's length list of medications that I'm on. So my symptoms are much better now than they used to be. But for many, many, many years, I had like 2 reoccurring voices that I would hear all the time, and I had to learn coping mechanisms on how to deal with them, because they would happen when I was like vulnerable, when I was trying to fall asleep, when I was in the shower, things like that. And it was always the same too. It was a man and like an elderly woman. Like if I was in the shower, I'd hear, "I see you," with like giggling, "I see you." And then if I was trying to fall asleep, I'd hear the old woman be like, "I'm cold, I can't sleep, I hurt, I'm cold, I see you." And I have always heard things like bells and phones ringing and things of that nature. And that's very mild for me. Not normal. If that happens to you, you should say something, but it's not normal. Because of my schizoaffective disorder, I pick up on patterns very, very easily. So almost everywhere that I look, I see faces. I pick up on number patterns really easily, which feeds into my paranoia, like badly. If you put like a blanket in front of me that has flowers on it, I can find 9 million scary faces in it. Like my brain, I guess this is because of my schizoaffective disorder. I didn't realize that it was, but my therapist told me, like, yes, it's because your brain is hyper firing shit, and you pick up on patterns a lot easier than like somebody else, like somebody without schizoaffective disorder would. Also, there's like, I remember being a kid and like I always associated like schizophrenia with multiple personalities. What the hell is wrong with people? Who pushed that narrative? Who pushed that narrative? It is not DID. It's not DID. Like, it's the only fucking thing about me that is a multiple personality is the difference between me when I'm hangry and me when I'm not. Like, there's no multiple personality. You mean a mood swing? You mean a fucking mood swing? One thing that I like severely struggle with is like eye contact, because I don't like faces. I don't know how to describe this. I'm trying to think. I was talking to my therapist about it the other day, and I was able to describe it to him better than I've ever been able to make words out of it. But it's like, it's almost like certain faces look uncanny to me. It's not all faces, but a lot of faces look very uncanny to me. It's like if I look at somebody for too long, including myself, everything kind of starts to melt together, and they have no detail to their face. Like their nose kind of starts to disappear, and their eyes kind of start to lose shape, and their mouth maybe move or it might disappear, and it's like they kind of look like wax melting but smooth, and I don't know how to describe that, but it's like it predominantly happens with women and not men, because men have like beards and usually have like fuller eyebrows and things to like accentuate their face, whereas a lot of times women have very like smooth skin and thinner eyebrows and things of that nature, and I think that's probably why. But it doesn't happen with everybody. And the thing is, like, if I see a face and it scares me, I'm never going to tell somebody, because I don't want them to perceive that as me thinking that they're ugly, because that's not what it is. I don't know what it is. My brain doesn't, like, I couldn't even give you like a type of face. I couldn't even give you a type. You know what it kind of looks like? Just take like Voldemort and make it like worse after a while. Like that right there was one thing about me that made my current psychiatrist be like, I don't know why you ever lost your schizoaffective diagnosis. I don't know why they knocked you back. Nobody wants to fucking be bipolar with psychotic features. But he was like, I don't know why, like with your history from your childhood, and I don't know why they would do that. But anyways, I struggle a lot with eye contact because I struggle with faces. I struggle with looking people in the eyes because I'm struggling with their face. Their face kind of starts to melt a little bit. And that includes my own face. My own face will do that, especially when I don't have makeup on. Like most people on the schizophrenic spectrum, I have struggled with substance abuse. I have struggled with homelessness. I struggle to gain and maintain friendships. I don't have a very good relationship with my family. I severely socially isolate myself. I become like debilitated with anxiety and don't want to leave my house because I become so overwhelmed so fast. Honestly, I'm a very self-aware person, and I think that is why I function as okay-ish as I do most of the time. I usually am okay-ish until it's a time of like great stress in my life, or like something happens, which I guess you could say that's great stress, or like, I don't know, I see my psychiatrist once a month, unless he feels I need to see him more. Ooh, sorry. And I go to therapy every 2 weeks. And it does not matter how I'm feeling and how life could be going great for me and I could be feeling fine. I have to go and I have to sit down and I have to talk to them, because the thing about schizophrenics and schizoaffectives and everybody on the spectrum is sometimes we say crazy shit that doesn't sound crazy to us. And our therapists and our psychiatrists pick up on it. So it's very, very important that we keep on top of our appointments. But yeah, something that I don't like the whole people thinking that people on the schizophrenic spectrum have like multiple personalities. That's not a thing. I don't like that they think that we're inherently violent. That's not a thing. Do we not socialize well? Yeah, we don't socialize well. Do we isolate ourselves from our family? Yeah. Do a lot of people struggle with, you know, substance abuse and things of that nature? Yeah, that's why I don't have friends. And it's not like I'm so quirky, guys. I don't have friends. I don't have friends because every person where I live does not know how to socialize without alcohol or drugs. And I refuse, because I have too much to lose in doing so. And I don't like who I am whenever I do those things. So I just stay the fuck away from everybody. Most of us don't have a very good relationship with our family. Most of us have very bad trauma somewhere buried in our life. And I'm no different. I'm no different. I'm not ashamed of being mentally ill. As much as my family may want me to be, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm very aware of it. And I feel like because of that, it has helped me be a better wife and a better mom. And that's another thing, like, I wish that people would realize that just because you are mentally ill doesn't mean that you're unlovable. It doesn't mean that you're incapable of being a loving parent and a loving spouse. If you're disabled at all, it does not mean that you're incapable of being a good parent, a good partner, you know, things of that nature. Like, there's a lot of things that other people can do, but there's a lot of things that I can do that other people can't. And I just kind of cling on to my strengths and stay self-aware. Another stereotype that I wanted to address was like the whole, like, schizophrenics are like super creative. No, I think I just am, because because all I did when I was a kid was lock myself in my room and play with makeup and draw. I think that's what it is. I think because I grew up with a mom that wouldn't allow me to have friends over because we lived in a hoarded up house, and then we lived in the middle of nowhere, so she didn't want to take us to town to see our friends, and she was constantly paranoid of people being in our business, so we weren't really allowed to have friends outside of school. I just locked myself in my room and drew and played with makeup and did things like that, and I don't think that my mental illness helped with any of that. Like, I don't think it like gave me an edge up on any of it. I'm just not ashamed. I'm just not ashamed, and I think that bothers a lot of people because they think that I should be, but I'm not. I just have to take my medicine, go to therapy, keep up with my psychiatrist, stay self-aware, and try. I have not had a major psychotic episode since 2021. And the last one that I had, it was a doozy. I'm looking down because that's gonna bug the shit out of me. There's so much like misinformation out there that like every person that is like me is like, we're mean, and we constantly 100% of the time have these like symptoms that cause all these different things. It's like, there are people that do live that way. I have somebody very close to me in my family, and by close to me I mean like genetically close to me, because we haven't been close since we were kids, that does experience life like that, but they have become detached from reality. They are not aware that life can be better, because where they are is what they believe to be the absolute truth. You know what I mean? And it sucks because when somebody is in a delusion, you can't speak logic to them. You cannot tell them this isn't real, because it doesn't matter. To them it is, and you're the enemy. You're lying to them, and it sucks to be at that point. But anyways, I just want to talk about it. I just felt compelled to talk about it because I keep seeing all this like stuff on my For You page. I'm like, please stop spreading that people like me are inherently violent, and that we have multiple personalities, and that, you guys ever seen those like mental health like simulators? The biggest crock of shit I've ever seen in my life. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about that. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.